everybody, and welcome to another edition, a sterling edition of There's a Will. In this edition, we shall be discussing neckwear of all kinds. In fact, we're going to devote the first half only to neckwear, cravats, bow ties, and half Windsors. I'm not wearing any neckwear this time because I wanted to be impartial.
Yes, yes.
I didn't want to take a side or one part of the triangle.
No.
Yeah, and we have a lady here. She's going to be the judge. This is Tamara, and her name is Gelashvili. Her last name, Gelashvili. I'm so good with names. Everybody knows by now. Gelashvili. I wonder what country you could be from. She's from the beautiful Republic of Georgia. Not the one in the United States, but the fantastic one just over there next to Azerbaijan.
And Armenia.
And Armenia, yeah. And not far from the Caspian Sea.
Extraordinary,
right?
An American who knows geography.
Yeah. Well, I've been there. I was kidnapped by pirates. And it was horrible. But I did spend some time. I mean, the kidnapping was fine, but being in Georgia was great. Actually, I was kidnapped by Russians almost. But that's another story. We'll get to that. And we have on the horn from beautiful, I think you're in East Poland, aren't you there, Olgierd?
Yep, formally it's Podlasie.
Podlasie, the beautiful Podlasie. Are you close to the border there?
Not that close, but we have all the armies around here and soldiers and so on.
Oh yeah, you go a lot over there. I was there last summer there, Olgierd. Olgierd Uziembło. I got your name right this time, right?
Yes.
That was closer, wasn't it? I've been practicing all week. And her name too. I was really afraid I was going to blow it. But so I went over to...
What do you think you haven't?
I probably still have. He's being kind again, and so is she.
We're all
very
kind to
nice
you.
people.
We are.
You're all nice to me, and I appreciate
Saturday
it.
afternoons when they let you out, isn't it?
Personally, I don't think it's worth it. But that's just my problem with myself. So Olgierd, over there last summer, I went to a little town. I forget the name of it, but it was right near the border there. And you could stay in the town and walk across into a field, and there was a river called the Bug, or the Bug if you're...
Bug, yeah.
The Bug if you're from around these parts, but the Bug if you're not, because it's B-U-G. And you could walk, I was saying, boy, you could walk. There was, right across the river, there was a candy stripe, pillar. And you could just walk across. I said, good Lord, how do they keep people out? They didn't a month later. The Russians had the same idea, or Putin, or whoever's in charge of immigration in Russia. I'm not sure who it is. Do you know who it is?
No.
No, I have no idea.
No, not at the moment, no.
Who's in charge of immigration? That's not in your portfolio.
No.
Today, we're gonna talk about a couple of other things. Then our subject for today is, who's next? A terrifying question. Who's next after Ukraine? Because from everything that Mr. Putin has said, I'm not putting words in his mouth, he has said, I want everything back. Me, me, me. It's all about him. Me, me, me. I want all the old Russian territories. And that includes your lovely country, Georgia. And it includes England. No, sorry, I was just throwing that in. It doesn't. The Russians never invaded England. No. But I was just testing you.
Yeah. Well.
Some English people might have said, yeah, when was that? Yeah.
Yes.
But not. So you happy with that subject, Olgierd?
Yeah, I actually checked this. Vladimir Kolokoltsev.
He's in charge of immigration?
Yeah.
What about exigration?
No
Emigration. I don't know either. Anyway, it's a crazy old world, and it's getting crazier and crazier by the week. I don't know. This inflation, I don't know. I just see my car is getting bigger.
Your car?
Yeah, it started off as one of those little small
Cars
Fiats.
are getting bigger.
Now it's a Mercedes.
Yeah, but have you seen the Fiat 500 to which you're referring? Was used to be tiny, like the Mini.
Yeah.
And now you see a Mini, they're huge, and a Fiat 500 is also huge.
It's much bigger.
And the Volkswagen Golf is also much huger than it was when it first came out.
And they have a what they call a combi, a station wagon,
everything's getting
an
bigger.
estate.
Yeah.
Isn't
Good
that
Lord.
they are like developing in the American direction? The bigger and bigger and bigger. They're just, in America, they're much more evolved, the cars.
Yeah, well, my point, yes. I don't know if they're more evolved. They're certainly bigger. But the Germans seem to be in charge of evolution of motoring. And Mr. Musk means brain in Polish.
Yes.
Not a lot of people know that if they're not Polish. I thought I'd throw that out there. So his name is Elon Brain in Polish.
Well, he'd like to think so.
That must suggest that he's pretty smart,
But
right?
he's laying off workers.
He's got to,
Yeah.
because
share price was down 10% yesterday.
Yeah, but also expenses and everything. You know.
Well, but it's ridiculous that his company is worth so much money, given the numbers of vehicles it produces compared to, say, Toyota or Volkswagen or any of these. The values are completely ridiculous.
Speculation,
It is speculation.
gambling.
It is. Well, people think it's a
Can't trust
technology
them.
company, not a car company. Clearly.
What else is? What's going on in England this week?
Well, it's this weekend, the 4 days of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. That's 70 years on the throne. It's the longest-serving monarch we've ever had. Nobody's ever reached a Platinum Jubilee before, and I think in the history of in the world, to the extent people know this, she's the third longest-serving monarch ever.
Do we know who the other two are? Is it like Hammurabi
No,
or
I think
somebody?
one was a king of Tonga.
Ah, yes,
Yeah,
the King of Tonga.
He got to about 70 odd years, I think, on
Yeah.
the throne. And probably, I forget who the others are, but it's a remarkable achievement. She's 95, and she's 95, and she's still working. Extraordinary. I mean, the sad thing is, or slightly sad thing is, this weekend she's not been able to take the part in all the activities because she has what are described by Buckingham Palace as mobility issues, which probably means at the age of 95 she's just,
She's infirm.
yeah, I think she has difficulty
From time to
standing.
time.
I mean, she stood on the balcony a couple of times.
Who
on
wants to
Thursday.
stand for that long anyway? you
Well,
know?
nobody. But I mean, that's the.
Get her a nice chair.
I mean, the amazing thing is, if you saw Trooping of the Colour on the television, Prince Charles was taking the salute in place of his mother. He was on a horse 73. The Princess Royal, Princess Anne, who is the Royal Colonel of the Blues and Royals, one of the components of the Household Cavalry, she was sitting ramrod straight on the horse. She's 71. I mean, extraordinary.
She's a big horse lady.
Yeah, she is. But even so, in that
Horsewoman?
sunshine, to sit still on a horse for that length of time is remarkable. I mean, I think we don't really appreciate. It's very popular these days to be very cynical, but we have no concept, because we're not born into it, but of this genuine idea of service. People think, oh, well, she's the Queen, she lives in this big palace, she's got lots of money, everything is done for her. But no, in actual fact, the palace is not her home, it's owned by the state. And every hour of every day is mapped out for her.
Hey, that's a big council house, that's what I say.
Every hour of every day is mapped out for her, as it is for all
It's not an
members
easy
of the royal-
job.
It's a terrible job.
Would you want that job?
I wouldn't want that job.
I wouldn't want
no,
that job.
no. But I mean, they'd be the people, that's why,
Yeah.
unless you're born into it, it's very difficult. And I think that's part of the problem when Diana Spencer married Prince
You know what?
Charles.
I'd like to have that job for a few years and then cash in on it in the United States, maybe California, with Netflix or something.
Yes, you mean like Prince Harry, poor chap.
Oh, somebody's already beat me to it?
They have beaten you to it.
Ah.
He was actually in London. Or they still are, I think. They appeared
Yeah, but he wasn't
at
allowed
the service
to...
of Thanksgiving yesterday at St. Paul's Cathedral, and they appeared at the Troop of the Colour on Horse Guards Parade, but you couldn't see them. They were in the building and they were looking through the window. It's very sad. I mean, it's sad for him. I'm sure he misses his royal duties and the things that came with it, because it was his raison d'etre. And he would have been he was very good up to the point he stopped doing it. I mean, he was very popular. He had a way of getting on with people. The Invictus Games charity, which he started, again, marvellous work. And it's just very sad that this woman came into his life and it all went
Hey, they got to
wrong.
stop letting the royal family marry women from America. They should. Here's a nice lady
Exactly.
from Georgia. I mean, would you like to, if you had met Harry, would you like to live in England?
No, not really.
No, see, she's a serious lady, financial analyst.
Well, nobody in their right mind.
She's doing my taxes in the break.
That's good. But nobody in
Because
their right.
she's doing them really fast. I'm paying her in bubble gum.
Nobody in their
Yeah,
right
okay.
mind would really to expect anybody who's not been brought up in that way to actually marry into the royal family and make a success of it is very, very difficult. I mean, they've been very lucky
Yeah, must be hard.
with the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate, as she then was.
Well, she's a sweetheart.
She's
Kate is a lovely name, isn't it?
Yeah, she's done
Unless
very well.
your name is Petruchio,
Yeah, but,
then it's not so
But
good.
before her, the only success was the Queen Mother.
That's a taming of the shrew
But the
joke.
Queen Mother was from aristocracy, so she was sort of semi-used to it. I mean, the funny thing is that Diana Spencer, because her brother-in-law,
old English family.
her brother-in-law had been private secretary to the Queen, so she, of all people, must have had more insight into what it was likely to be. or what the life was likely to be, and even she couldn't cope. And obviously for Meghan, who was used to the Hollywood sort of being taken as the star, and she was never going to be the starring person.
She was never a big star
in the royal family, because
was in a
she married
TV
she married somebody who was never going to be king, and the only person who counts in the royal family ultimately is the Queen, and in due course Prince Charles, when he becomes king, will be the only person who counts.
and then William and then
And
William's
and so
son.
she was only ever going to be the wife of the second son, but could have made a success. But they had a marvelous wedding. She was very popular in the United Kingdom.
100 million
And then
shekels,
but
okay.
then ex post facto, there's this was racist. They weren't going to make my son a prince. Rubbish. What really upset me about all this?
I seem to have struck a nerve
You
with
did,
this
no,
subject.
but this what was really sad, I think, this interview she did.
Tomorrow thinks I
I don't want to take
You
it
know
out.
why Russia will win the war?
Why? Because we're too busy talking about the Queen?
Yeah, because you get all the West gets distracted by the queens, kings, and all those other things.
Yeah, instead of focusing on the subject,
Yes.
Yeah.
which we must get to now, because Tamara and I we know each other for some time, but we were having a conversation with you the other night.
We were.
A couple of other friends, Peter and I forget the other lady's name, Martina. Nice lady. And we got to talking about Georgia, because I went over for the war, as one does. I popped in to Gori.
Whenever you pop in anywhere, a war breaks out. This is
Yeah,
quite
I've heard that
frightening.
said before.
Yeah, by me actually. I say it whenever
Yeah.
I see you.
I was quite a lot in Ukraine.
You and President Putin have a lot in common.
I might be going to Ukraine on Tuesday, early in the morning, just for a couple of days.
Where
I can't
to?
tell you where. Can't tell you where online.
Okay.
I can't tell you, because they could be a heat-seeking missile.
They could be waiting for you.
Actually, the heat-seeking missile would only be a problem if Nick was with me with all the hot air. But the actually to Odessa. But sort of beep, in and out.
That's an interesting story. In Odessa, there is this Chinese guy who is putting up a lot of information online, and he's one of the very few Chinese that does not support the Chinese line. He was actually chased down on Chinese media, and he was banned from some of the Chinese social media because he puts up information about Russian atrocities and the way that Ukrainians see the war, not what is the official party line in China.
So they have a similar, maybe perhaps not as stringent, but a similar thing with what's going on in Russia when it
Yes.
comes to limiting what people can say. But this is, I don't know why everybody thinks China's so great when they have this huge elephant in the room called censorship. Censorship never works, and it stifles every society. But let's talk to a lady from a newly freed country, 30 years ago anyway.
30 years.
It was 30 years ago, in 91, wasn't it,
Yes,
that Georgia
91.
became free. And you were just, since you're only like 21 years old,
A little bit more.
she's a
I think.
prodigy, folks. No, you grew up in Tbilisi, is that
I
correct?
grew up in Moscow, and then I moved to Tbilisi.
In Moscow.
Yes.
So you're like an agent, right?
Yeah, kind of.
You're an agent from the, but you're Georgian.
Yes, I'm 100% Georgian. Just my
Yeah.
parents were working there.
Yeah, and what were your parents doing? Besides spying, of course.
Yes, nothing else. Nothing else.
Yeah, just spying.
Yeah,
It
just
pays well if you get on the
know,
right
I know.
side, doesn't it? You know, in
Yeah,
a good
exactly.
position. Yeah, Nick knows. Yeah, Nick knows all about it.
That's how we met each other.
Yes, yes. He was, he had the other end of the Jello box, and you put them together, yeah, or whatever, the candy wrapper.
Torn photograph in our case.
It was a torn photograph. Yeah, yeah. And you moved back to Georgia at what age?
I think around 7, 8. Mm-hmm. And then I moved here after my high school. So I lived in Georgia, and I visited Georgia like 2, 3 times per year.
Mm-hmm. So you're over there quite a lot.
Yes.
To visit. We go back and visit. He goes to England. I go to the States. I go to England sometimes. There's sort of roots both places. But so you get back 3 times. That's quite a lot. How long have you been in Poland now?
For 11 years.
For 11 years.
11
yeah.
years,
And
yes.
you're a financial analyst
Yes.
at this stage of life,
Yes.
having worked your way in by being a focused Georgian lady. What do you think about the situation of Georgia today? Because if we say who's next, which is the kind of topic for today, we can think of all these ex-Soviet places, but also, Russian Empire spheres of influence too, or places that were even added to the Russian Empire. Most of this happened in in the late 18th century and 19th century. Certainly all the Turkmenistan and the Turkestans all were taken over by the Russians in the 19th century, I believe. But what's it like growing up in Georgia? And you have an interesting way of looking at it. Perhaps you can see both sides because you were in Moscow in the beginning, early memories. Parents know the Russians well.
Yes, they do.
What's it like growing up with this sort of, what is it, Damocles?
Damocles.
Hanging over your head.
I cannot say I ever had any problem because maybe I was like little. And it was just collapse of the Soviet Union. So people more or less still were thinking that they're kind of the same nation. It wasn't like that divided. I think the division became more like maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But in early 90s, there was still a lot of Georgians, Azerbaijani, Ukrainians living in Russia. So it was still kind of, it collapsed, but it was still the same country. In a sense, people were still continuing living the same way.
And what do you think the fear? What was the thing that made people begin to fear the Russians again? Was it just them coming into the two territories there in the north or near Gori, just above that, in the mountains, or was it deeper than that?
I think it's deeper than that. I think it's the history, because our history with Russia lays for many centuries. They're our neighbors. For the first time, I think it was 18th or 19th century, when we were under Russian Empire. Then we got free, and then we got under Soviet Union. And after we went out from the Soviet Union, Georgians never wanted to be again under Russia. Mm-hmm. And then the war that happened, actually it was the first European war of the 21st century, it's counted. And it was not war. Russia never declared officially war to Georgia. They're only helping.
Tell us what happened, because some people, this will be unfamiliar to a lot of people.
Russians were helping South Ossetia to get free from Georgian Empire, let's say.
Mm-hmm. The Georgian Empire?
Yeah, let's say like this. So Russians came to help, like as now they're helping Ukraine to get free from fascism. The same was, 14 years ago?
Right.
Russians helped South Ossetia to get free from Georgia.
And it's interesting. I think Georgia is a very good example here. Poland is too, because of Kaliningrad, which is often voted it's in Poland, it's on the Baltic, but it's surrounded by Poland and an edge of Lithuania, a part of Lithuania. But it's also voted very often the most popular city in Russia. It's actually in Poland. Königsberg is its proper name. It was called Kaliningrad after World War II. But I think Georgia is a very good example of what we're talking about, because you've already had one invasion there, because there's a continuing occupation of these two countries.
And because 20% is taken of our territories, and from Gori to Tbilisi, let's say it's like 40-30 minutes by car, even faster. Mm-hmm. So they're very close.
Yeah, and Stalin was from
Stalin was from Gori. Yes, he was from Gori.
Yeah, Gory. He's from there. And you can see still the little hole in the ground where he grew up, which is no wonder he was upset.
It's a small museum. I never was there.
Yeah.
But it's still a museum in Gori, like in a city center.
Yes, I've been there. It's in a park, a little park.
Yeah, I never was there.
Yeah.
Gori is not my favorite place to go in Georgia.
It's not your favorite place. No. There's nothing there except
nothing.
Stalin, and on your way to ski, I suppose. But
yes.
And there's a rail car, one of his rail cars. He had a number of them, but one of his personal rail cars that he traveled about, like in Dr. Zhivago, the Strelnikov.
Strelnikov, yes.
Always in his. That was based on Trotsky and
it was,
and probably Stalin, wasn't it? At any rate, Olgierd, what do you have to offer about that? Do you concur with me that Georgia is a good model for this problem of who's next?
Well, it's always a good model. Actually, you just look for the social or religious turmoil problems, and Russia has been always using the same technique: slicing off, finding the problem, hooking into a country, and then dissolving it. Look at what happened with Poland in 18th century. Ekaterina the Great, receiving the help from the West, nonetheless, the great philosophers of the West were supporting her. Also was working with Poland to protect other believers from Catholics who were oppressing them. That's why Poland was destroyed. It will always be like that.
Catholics were oppressing who? Orthodox people?
Yeah, the people, the Protestants, the Orthodox.
Oh,
so,
and Protestants if you were from the German side, or yeah.
yeah. So they had to defend all those people from the Polish people. And they destroyed our country. They took it away for 123 years.
Yeah, so, I mean, Poland has a special complaint here. The Russians have took over Poland at the end of the 18th century, as you said, with Catherine the Great. Not a lot of people are aware of that. Some people think it was earlier, but no.
There were 3 partitions, first in 1772.
Yes.
The final one in 1795.
Between Austrian Empire
And Prussia and the Russian
and the
Empire.
Russians. Yeah. So that's Poland always. People say, "Oh well, you know, why is Poland so upset about this?" Because people forget. Oh, wait a second, erased for 120 years or 123 years.
Exactly.
That'll tend to upset
I mean,
you.
people don't be upset because geography has not been kind to Poland in the sense of the movement of arms. And of course, now we see Russia having, when it's not sort of saying nasty things and doing nasty things to Ukraine as a sort of side remark, they like to threaten Poland. And of course, on the other side of Poland, we have Germany, which historically, starting with Prussia, was always a bit of a nuisance. And even today, when we look at what's going on in Ukraine, we have the German government promising to send arms to Ukraine, and we have the German Chancellor, a man whose own past suggests he had a certain degree of sympathy for the East German regime, dragging his feet. It's extraordinary. We have the former Chancellor Schroeder, a key figure in Gazprom. We have the recent Chancellor Merkel, who was always very pro-Russian. It was part of the reason Europe is in this mess is she thought getting cheap hydrocarbons from Russia would be a great policy. Nord Stream 2, people warned about Nord Stream 2. And then we have the German...
Well, Mr. Biden approved.
Yeah,
he shut down our exploration.
Yeah, then we have the German...
and
then we have the German President Steinmeier, who was former foreign minister, who's saying, oh, well, you know, Nord Stream 2 is a debt we owe to the Russians for what happened in World War II. I mean, extraordinary Blinken approach by the Germans.
Did they forget what happened after World War II?
Well, no, they didn't, but this is just part of the problem. Germany, unfortunately, I mean, when the world has come together, NATO and Europe and the wider world, to actually deal with the Russians as a result of the invasion of Ukraine, we have this sort of backsliding by Hungary and sort of semi-backsliding by Germany. I mean,
Hungary's always been close to Germany, then.
Yes, well, exactly.
It's part of Austrian Empire.
I mean,
closer, actually.
It seems that the majority of people in Germany, I mean, the Greens seem to be taking a far stricter line against Russia than Scholz's party. But it seems that he personally, in his party, is losing a lot of support, because people can see that when the world is uniting against Russian aggression, it's really bizarre that the Germans sort of take this sort of rather half-hearted view of it all.
I'm wondering at Hungary, they always take the wrong side in history somehow. First World War, Second World War.
Right.
Now?
Yeah, because they were associated with the Axis and the Second War and the Central Powers and World War I. So
yes.
That's true. Yeah. And one wonders why why they do that.
Well, I suppose it's probably partly historical, isn't it?
Yeah.
We forget, or maybe we don't forget, that Budapest was one of the Habsburg capitals,
yes,
along with Vienna. So there was this, and even when you had the creation of Austro-Hungary, you still had this problem. They're sort of psychologically feeling part of the Habsburg Empire, or part of the Habsburg arrangements, which necessarily tend to move them towards Austria and the sort of Germanic way of thinking of Europe.
And that's why, you know, Hungarians are very, very well known for I know it's not really Hungarian, but salami too. Salami way of doing politics is also very interesting. The little slicing of all the countries that Russia wants to take over. Slice by slice.
Yes. And how do you feel? How do you feel about the future of Georgia? I remember you said to me before, when we weren't on the air, but the other night when we were speaking, you said that the Russians are taking
Yes,
piece by
unofficially the borders in the mountain, they're every day moved a little bit towards Russian side. So one day you fall asleep, you're in Georgia, tomorrow you wake up, you're in Russia.
Mm-hmm. So they're just
Yeah,
encroaching
so
on Georgia.
unofficially it's not proven, nothing, but it keeps moving.
Yeah.
like bordering the mountains.
I mean, this is actually a reflection of the great game in the 19th century.
Tell us about
Between the British Empire and the Russian Empire in sort of Afghanistan and the northwest frontier. At the start of the so-called Great Game.
The Great Game. Can you hold that thought? Because we got to go to break now.
Yeah, but I was just saying, at the start of the Great Game, the borders were 1,000 miles apart. And by the end of the Great Game, they were 100 miles apart.
We'll start with the Great Game, and we'll expand on that,
Yeah.
because this is still the Great Game being played. All right, who's next, folks? That's what we're trying to find out with Olgierd Uziembło, with Nicholas Richardson, and Tamara Gelashvili
Yes, you're right.
from beautiful Georgia. Okay, see you after the break.
It goes in the flash of an eye, doesn't it, you see? You've
Right, welcome back with Tamara Gelashvili, financial analyst and expert on Georgian culture, particularly wine, I understand.
Yes.
That is your
particular
favorite thing, and one of them. And Nicholas Richardson, who told us about trooping the color, whatever that may mean, and other things, and Professor, the august personage known as Professor Olgierd Uziembło. I said it almost okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, you were talking about the Great Game.
The Great Game, yes.
I think baseball's a great game.
Yeah, but this was this is far more serious than that.
I think cricket's a great
Which
game.
was essentially, yeah, the Great
That's a
Game
lie.
was the name given to the sort of diplomatic and other maneuvers between the British Empire and the Russian Empire in the 19th century.
Yeah, centered around
Where essentially the British,
Afghanistan
the British wanted obviously to defend
and the Turkestan.
defend India, and the Russians, of course, in their usual manner, just wanted to grab as much territory as possible.
Yeah.
So it's called the Great Game because, of course, we played it as a game, but for the Russians, it was deadly serious. Those are the days when we were lucky as a nation that our leaders could sort of do everything with a slightly detached sense of humour, because that's just the position we occupied in the world. I'd say it was a bit of a game. But I mean, one of the serious points is if you look at Afghanistan, the British tried 3 times in the 19th century to do something with Afghanistan and failed. So therefore, given that you can learn from history, it was amazing, wasn't it not, that we were in Afghanistan again for the 4th time with the Americans and other people and end up leaving in a bit of chaos. We of all people should realise that we stay well clear of Afghanistan.
That's right. I mean, after the Russians, but also the British could have been whispering in America's ear, going, "Hey, wait a second, guys. We tried this for,
It's never going to work.
many decades. It didn't work, much longer than you tried." But at any rate, I have a little, because we like to have a little
Yes.
competition here. Here, I mean, we play ping pong in the break, but we come back in here, and the competition would be who can name, I bet you can, who can name all of the Turkestans, the stands.
Stands.
Who can name all the stands? I know the professor can. Professor Olgierd, can you name all the stands? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I
Yes,
guess
I can.
yes. I can name.
You can name them. Okay, you're out because you're a professor. I know that you can do it. Really, I wanted to see if Nicholas could. That was kind of the test. Can you name all the stands? She can.
Probably yes.
Yes, probably yes. You can because you're from over near that way.
Yeah.
And I
My
bet all of you
neighbors.
will miss one of them. Ha.
All of us will miss one.
Yeah.
Okay. Nicholas, maybe you and I will try. What are the stands? The Turkestans. What are they?
Uzbekistan,
Uzbekistan.
Kazakhstan,
Yes.
Kyrgyzstan. Sorry, I can't remember.
Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan, sorry. There's another one.
Tajikistan.
Tajikistan.
Dagestan.
Dagestan is part of the Russian Federation.
It's part of the Russian
That
Federation.
doesn't count.
Oh, why wouldn't it?
No, well, okay, it counts as a stand, but we were...
Afghanistan, is that one of them?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, we were talking about...
Yeah.
We thought about the stands which are independent of Russia, independent countries.
Yes. Which
Former
does-
Soviet republics...
She
as
knew
a-
Dagestan.
As,
She's the one.
as opposed to
Tamara.
parts of the Russian Federation.
Okay, so then my one wouldn't count. That's the Chinese Turkestan.
Chinese Turkestan.
Chinese
But there's
Turkestan.
also Turkmenistan.
Turkmenistan, yeah.
Ah, which we didn't say.
Yeah.
So those are two sneaky ones. Did we get them all?
Yeah, I think so.
Did we get them all?
Yes.
That is a lot of
Of
area,
size.
isn't it? That goes right from Georgia almost, the edge of
You're
Georgia.
missing the Polish, the name of Poland for
Chechen.
Ottoman Empire.
Sorry, what?
Ottoman Empire had a very nice name for Poland, Lechistan.
What did it mean?
Oh, the land of Lech. Lech would be.
Lech, the legendary founder of Poland. Okay.
Turkish call and Ottoman Empire were calling Georgia till today Gürcistan. It's like
You
a
see-
land of Gürj.
Gürcistan.
Yeah, so
Gürcistan.
for them we're a stan country too.
Land of George. Yeah.
Yes.
The land of George.
Who is
Gürcistan.
So
George?
did you pick up while we're on the subject of Turkey? Turkey has officially changed its name to the Turkish name, and the United Nations have accepted this. So we will now be inundated with newsreaders and others, particularly the BBC, no doubt, trying to pronounce Turkey the Turkish way.
How do
which
you-
is now going to be the,
How do you say it?
I don't know,
Turkey.
Turkey?
Turkey. So we won't be. We
can
will
say that.
now be roundly condemned for saying Turkey instead of Turkey.
What?
Because apparently the Turks have felt a bit sensitive about the fact that Turkey, the country, and Turkey, the fowl, are the same. But of course, nobody would make that connection.
I wouldn't.
No, but it's now going to be called Turkey or something. we see.
Turkey.
Which is the Turkish for Turkey.
Have you seen the petition on the internet
No.
to change the name of the fowl as well?
No.
But you're going to change the name of the bird? I call it a bird, you call it a fowl, but I know what you mean. Can't sneak that kind of stuff by me. I
So
almost
I
graduated
apologise for that
university.
slight diversion.
Yeah. 4 times. Anyway, that's not true. So out of all these stands are under threat too, right? The Turkestans. That whole area going all the way, right the way to China, to the Himalayas, starting with Chechnya, which is on the edge of Georgia, right?
Yes,
And
we
then
have
Kazakhstan
mountains.
is next, right?
I think Kazakhstan is more or less safe because they have good relationship with Russia. In a sense, they have a good relationship.
So they don't need, Russia doesn't need to invade them because they're already
No,
controlling
they have
it.
good, yes.
Yeah,
The same as with Armenia.
yeah.
They have like a pact, I don't remember, between Russia, Armenia, Kazakhstan and other countries. So when they're like in beginning of January where they had like almost a revolution, Russia and Armenia were helping them.
In,
In Almaty, when everything started in Almaty.
right.
So they were helping them.
Okay, and where does Azerbaijan?
Can I just
Go ahead.
Can I
Jump.
just something?
Yeah, jump in.
With Kazakhstan, it's a really interesting situation because even though the Russians helped them in January with what is his name now, Tokayev regime, Tokayev does not help Russians back, and actually there were calls to invade Kazakhstan on Russian TV. I know TV may be not very serious, but when the call comes on the #1 channel, it may be interesting.
So the Russians called for invasion of Kazakhstan
Kazakhstan,
On-
because they're
on the first
ungrateful.
channel of Russian TV.
Yes.
That's
was
interesting. They
Tikran-
call for a lot of things on that first channel, like the
they
destruction.
haven't.
They want to use satanic missiles against the United States.
No, actually in Russian they are not called Satanic, but Sarmata, which
Sarmata.
is Sarmatian.
Yeah, but you know the
So-
story. You heard the story. They keep
Yeah.
making a lot of threats, don't they?
They do. Interesting when I picked up that Putin allegedly is asking that Russian television does not refer to the 100th day of the action in Ukraine because he doesn't want anybody to realize that this war has been going on for 100 days with not much to show for it,
Well,
apart from a lot of destruction, of course.
So he's just forbidding that they
They-
count
so
beyond 100, so they're going
yeah.
to start minus days now?
Exactly, something like that. So, but I mean, just to go to this return, I mean, who's going to be next? I mean, all being well, there won't be a next. Because there can only be a next if Russia succeeds in its action against Ukraine. And I don't think it is
Yeah.
going to succeed. Now, what we're facing probably is some sort of stalemate where Russia occupies sort of 20% of Ukraine and the Ukrainians stop them occupying any more. And then they're sort of slogging it out, destroying everything between them. That seems to be the most likely outcome. But the idea that Russia is going, as a result of this, going to be able to go and occupy anybody else, I think is pretty remote. Hopefully it's remote. There was a fear at the beginning, the Baltic states will be next, and then Moldova, of course, and the part of Moldova
Which is next to
which
Romania.
is and that part of Moldova which also borders Ukraine,
Transnistria.
yes, which would allow if the Russians had this land bridge all the way across Ukraine and then up into that part of Moldova, they'd really surround Ukraine.
You know, Moldova was an independent country, principality for many, many. It's very strange. It's like the Prisoner of Zenda or something, that old movie where there's a sort of fictitious country. It's Moldova. It sort of existed in between everything, and until eventually the Russians made their big move in the 19th century. I think it's worth stressing that, we said it on the last show, but I think it's always worth stressing that the Russian Empire has only existed since Ivan the Terrible put it together in the middle of the, like 1547.
Yes.
Yeah? So that's not a long time in terms of, I mean, England's been around how long, you know?
Since time immemorial.
Since time immemorial. And I mean, the United States is not much younger than that. The United States founded, or the colonies, the British part of it, was founded in 1607. So the landing at Jamestown. The Spanish had been in the New World since 1492, I think is the date, isn't it, with Columbus. But not to say that there weren't other people there. I'm talking about the establishment of these, what we consider the modern main countries. So Russia's a fairly new player. And I think this really undermines Mr. Putin's case. Also, something that undermines his case, I hope you'll agree, and if you don't, tell me, is that Peter the Great built St. Petersburg as a window to the West because he thought they looked too eastern. Isn't that right, Olgierd?
Well, the Russians have been dabbling in this Eurasian ideology for quite a long time, and I believe Putin is really into it. A lot of people who advise him are the Euro-Asianists, and for them, looking west is completely wrong. They deny existence of something which is called in Russian the Tatar ego, the yoke of the Tatars, the Mongolians. And they say that Russia should always look east, learn from the east, and be powerful with the east. So that's really different.
Well, no wonder
For them,
so all of the work that Putin's doing in the West then is merely to defend the rear of Russia. Is that it?
no, I would say that different because for them
that's
there
not
was
Peter
no,
the Great's idea. That's why I brought that up.
No. This is for them. It's you should look into Mongolian conquests because for them, for a lot of those ideologists, they seem to have the idea that Mongolia and Russia were friendly countries and they were conquering the world together, as opposed to having been invaded and destroyed by Mongols. So for them, they want to make Eurasia the powerful part, and spreading to the West is a natural thing by destroying it.
Yes, it's interesting too. So, if there was no natural partnership with the Mongols, the Golden Horde, Genghis Khan, etc., then why should there necessarily be a natural pact between Russia and China along the same lines?
Yes, I mean, I think there is no natural pact between Russia and China. I think China is probably in as much as China cares about anybody, because the thing about the Chinese is they take a very long-term view. So what today, tomorrow, 10 years' time is irrelevant because the Chinese are looking well into the future.
They're looking a century ahead.
I suspect in as much as they think about these things, the Chinese and President Xi is probably very embarrassed about the support he's given Russia, because Russia has turned out to be completely useless on the battlefield.
Well, are they useless? Because
they have been.
What's going to happen now? What's going to happen now in Ukraine and the East? Because right now, we haven't had a report from Michal. Michal's actually our reporter who's been over. He's back in Poland now.
The military operation, as I imagine was envisaged by the Russians, was not to sit there pounding every Ukrainian city into rubble. That's not anybody can do that with enough missiles. That's not military skill. The operation was presumably to go into Kyiv as quickly as possible, remove Zelensky and that government, and put in some sort of puppet, and make, in a similar way to Belarus, make Ukraine part of a new, sort of, want of a better way, greater Russia.
Yeah, but in the meantime,
and they failed
it's a
miserably.
good point.
They failed miserably.
They have on that score. They didn't take Kyiv. They didn't decapitate the government, as they say. And what they have done, though, is take this whole area. You know, this is what people were talking about at the beginning, and they just didn't get Odessa. It's impossible now because of the fortification there and the weaponry. But they have got that whole coast up to Odessa, which was something that people talked about before the war. And not only that, they may be close to getting the whole of the Donbass, Donetsk, and
Maybe.
Luhansk. Well, it looks that way because they're, as you say, they're just pounding forward and destroying everything. Now, what kind of victory that is? Perhaps a Pyrrhic victory, but is it a victory or not, to be determined. What say you, Olgierd?
Well, it's very hard to say because both governments are actually now doing a lot of propaganda, so it's difficult to discern what is actual win of the. You can look into Polish sources; they start to repeat that Ukrainians are actually losing on the battlefield. There is a lot of talk like that in Switzerland, Austrian, and German sources, which also kind of shows us who is not going to support Ukraine and supply arms. And I don't know. It's really hard to say. Ukrainians are going to defend this way or another way, and will be really difficult to occupy the country for the Russians.
To occupy the whole country, absolutely, it would take 1 million men. They don't have that, and there would be a constant partisan war. But they have achieved something of their objective, and this is becoming clear as we get further away from the start, and we begin to realize that maybe
but it costs them
Kyiv
a lot.
was not the most important in a sense.
Sorry to barge in. When you look at Dagestan, for example, I've been listening to some demographers doing the counting, and they say a lot of statistics that we have on Russia, especially on the young people and the birth rate, might be actually overblown. So the people that are losing in Ukraine might be the last people that may recreate their population in certain republics that are losing a lot of soldiers, like Dagestan, for example.
That's a very good point.
They have it for a while, that the demography is going down for maybe like 15 years.
In Russia?
Yes, in Russia they have it for a while. It's a big problem. It's been for a while already there.
Yeah, they're losing people, then they're losing all these soldiers.
And all of the wars that they are into, like all of the military that they're sending around the world. So they're just losing people and no new babies are not born.
That's right. But to go back to Georgia, because we have you here, and this is something that, I mean, you're a witness to this over years, over much of your life, to this struggle with, this is a personal thing for you, as a point. We're looking at it as a kind of puzzle we're trying to figure out, but you've lived this. What is stopping the Russians from taking Georgia? Why did they not just take Georgia? Why are they taking Ukraine? Or they want to take Ukraine and not Georgia? Seems easier, since they have the alliance with Armenia and it's next door.
Maybe because we are not on a priority for now. We're just third or second on the list. Or because most of our companies and everything are already Russian.
This is a good point. And the other thing is...
We have a lot of Russian businessmen. We have a lot of Russians coming, opening their businesses. So I don't think we are a priority right now.
Also, you're a wine nation, they're a vodka nation.
Yes.
Just kidding.
Yeah, it's a very nice mix if you're a student.
It's a good mix if you're a student. But Georgia, of course, the home of wine. They'll tell you all about it when you go there. I didn't know till I went there that was true. Yes, as we're winding down, who's next? Olgierd, let's make a list. Who is next? If Russia stays where it is in Ukraine, who's next?
Well, if Russia stays where it is in Ukraine, I would say that they will take something that is easy, but will make an easy victory for them.
Which
They'll
would
probably
be?
not go against any NATO.
Moldova?
I don't want to. I don't want to upset Tamar.
No,
but,
I know that. I said we're on the list. I know
You
that.
think Georgia's next? That's why I brought it up. I wanted to.
I'm still
I don't want to scare you.
hesitating. It's Moldova or Georgia. I'm hesitating because
Okay,
Moldova
okay, I
will be
agree.
closer.
Do you agree?
Yes, but
Tamara?
Moldova is a bit too close to Europe. They'll be afraid. In Georgia, nobody will stand up to them. At least that's what they think. As usual, they think.
The Turks
don't-
won't like it.
And that is the probable reason for them to stop. The same thing with Karabakh. I don't know.
How much do we have
Besides, Georgia is already the president of not president, the prime minister of Georgia is pro-Russian, as I understand.
Yes, he is.
It's pro-Russian?
So
They
them
say
is not
so.
necessary. Yeah.
Really? That's odd.
Would it be? Yes. I mean, as I say,
I suppose if you're getting paid enough.
I'm still optimistic that there is no next at this stage.
You think there's no... But, well, this is the point. But if there were, say that... I don't think Russia's going to do much more than what they've got, but it's still... And the Donbass that they're going to inherit after all this destruction will be
we're
worth
assuming
zero.
that this actually becomes a stalemate. This is what part of the Russian... the Russians have failed militarily,
Yeah.
clearly, and they have. We can argue about it, but they failed militarily.
Yeah.
So then...
You're saying don't be defeatist. That's what
Yeah,
you're
so
saying.
I'd say that
yeah.
because...
And don't
because
settle.
The Russians have failed
Yeah.
military, so what can they do now? Then they can...
You've got the last word,
some
Nicholas.
diplomatic victory. And
30
the way
seconds.
they get to diplomatic victory, of course, is trying to sow dissension in the West, for want of a better word, and to try and bore us all into submission. So you think, oh, well, you know, they've got this bit of Ukraine, why do we care? Let's get back to having oil because we're Germans and our standard of living is more important than a few Ukrainian women being raped. I'm sorry to put it in those terms, but that is when I see Scholz speaking, that's exactly what I think and what the head of Volkswagen, all these people are thinking. Why do we worry about these Slavic people in Ukraine when they're getting in the way of my standard of living? And that, of course, is all Russia can hope for now.
It's
They
not
can't
just
win
in
mili-
Germany where
They
this
can't.
occurs.
They can't. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But that's what the Russians can only hope for now. Is
Yeah.
that they bore the rest of the
Division
world.
amongst the West and lack of
Exactly.
will. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Who's next still remains to be seen. I'm glad that we had Tamara. Tamara, thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for
It was
inviting me.
excellent contribution, and we
It was.
appreciate it. Nicholas, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Looking elegant as
Thank you.
usual. And Professor Olgierd Uziembło. I'm going to say it like 10 times.
Yeah.
I'm going to practice.
And
for
once
next
you'll
time.
get it right.
Olgierd, thank you very much, sir, for joining us from Eastern Poland in your book nook, looks like. Okay, thank you everybody for watching this particular show. Who's next? Perhaps you have an idea. If you do, write in under the show on YouTube and let us know. That's all we have. See you next week.